so people better house. Just touch on the sign and the microphone. Yeah. And just make sure you kill that way. And then, just actually
I turned it up. So
because it was
matching my mic level.
perfect. All right.
So we're back on the record in State v. Guerrero Torres. The defendant and all counsel are present, and the defendant is still being assisted by a Spanish language interpreter. The court took a 10-minute recess to allow the attorneys to confer. Where do we stand, Mr. Brazel?
We do not have a plea agreement. We do
Okay,
not.
but and no hope of one at this point?
Not today, Your Honor.
Okay, but I asked you all to also confer with regard to the fact that we have a pretrial conference scheduled at 1 tomorrow, and to confer with regard to a potential continuance if that was going to be agreed or objected to.
Unfortunately, I spent the whole period with Mr. Guerrero Torres. We're going to allow the states, because we are going to be asking for continuance tomorrow, whether the state objects or not. That's up to them.
The state, knowing the amount of motions and rulings that need to be had in advance of trial, the state is not objecting to a continuance because we also know that there's new counsel on the case.
Okay, in that case, I would like to continue the pretrial from tomorrow as well. We have currently set aside 2 of my trial days to hear motions in this case, pending motions. And I don't want to spend 2 days hearing motions too soon. I obviously want to hear them in time to keep the case moving. But what I don't want to do, those dates are coming up in 2 weeks, is to spend that time and then subsequent to 2 days of motions practice, the parties say, okay, now we have an agreement. Clearly, you all are encouraged to continue negotiating. There are a lot of issues in this case that I think the parties are able to evaluate and determine. One of the things that I would like to point out is that the defendant is facing 2 life felonies and a capital felony, and the evidence and the strength of the state's case with regard to each of those charges has to be evaluated separately by both parties in order to try to see whether you could reach a resolution that is in the best interest of the defendant as well as the state, and I encourage you to continue talking. I think maybe what we should do is not plan on having motions hearings on those 2 days that I had identified on my next trial calendar, and let me give you all a couple of weeks. But I don't know what the issue is to know what, so I'm to some extent guessing at what kind of time you need. I don't want to spend time if it's not going to be fruitful.
Your Honor, it's something that we're either going to get it done sooner, and if we ain't getting it done sooner, we're not getting it done later as far as the plea. So, this is a very narrow issue.
Do you want to see about scheduling? We know that we can't have a trial with jury selection beginning April 11th unless we told the clerk to send out hundreds of subpoenas. So we could consider a pretrial or a plea hearing next week prior to the motions calendar that we had talked about on the 14th and 15th.
I think that would be pretty beneficial.
I don't know what kind of availability I have. Let me look. I was looking at Monday. I don't have any time on Monday. On Tuesday, I'll be doing jury selection and in trial. I could potentially plan on a pretrial if I can get a court reporter and a interpreter on Wednesday morning and have a jury come in late. So I could start at 8 o'clock on Wednesday, March 13th, and either have a pretrial or a plea. What is counsel's availability on Wednesday, March 13th?
The state is available Wednesday, March 13th.
At
And
8
of
a.m.?
course, at 8 a.m. And we have also, of course, scheduled our calendars for the 14th and 15th, so we're available on those days as well. That's all.
If we end up not having a pretrial on the 13th, can the 14th and 15th? That's too many moving parts because you have witnesses and all kinds of prep. So okay, we are not having motions next week. I have just decided, and because everybody looked for their own availability on March 14th, and I also presumably, not me personally, but my office would have made arrangements for interpreter, court reporter. Let's plan on 8:30, March 14th, for either a pretrial or, if you all have worked out the details, a plea. Does that give you enough time to work out the details?
Yes, it does, Your Honor. It's a very narrow issue.
Okay. All right. So March 14th at 8:30 for a plea, or if no plea, a pretrial conference for Mr. Guerrero Torres, and we'll talk about when we're going to hear motions if we have a pretrial.
Thank you.
And then counsel should come as well with their calendars if it's going to be a pretrial and not a plea, so that I can figure out when I can get this back on, trying to give Ms. Fitzgeorge all the time that she needs to get ready and get this case resolved.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, March 14th at 8:30. Thank you.